Hello, and you're all very, very welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Hurley. I'm joined tonight by Seamus Brady from Cluiche to look forward to this weekend's Allianz Football League action. There's a few hurling games scattered in there as well, and it's the end of the college competitions with the O'Connor Cup in LGFA taking place this weekend as well. Before we get into it, shout out to our sponsors at Capture Athletics. If you want the best gear around, check them out if you haven't already. So yeah, Seamus, we're into round 6 now in the Allianz League. A lot of places going up for grabs now. Like a few places have been decided before this weekend. Wexford are already promoted from Division 4. I think by my calculations as well, Leitrim are relegated from Division 3. I might be corrected on that. But other than that, it is all up for grabs this weekend. And it should be a very interesting weekend of action.
Yeah, definitely. So looking forward to jumping in with it again, Matthew. It's the football's turn this weekend. Obviously, we've two big hurling games. Obviously, Kilkenny and Limerick sells itself. That's the main one. I think we're going to talk about that obviously later. But this is football's equivalent of what hurling had last weekend. It's a weekend where football will definitely take centre stage, and the new rules will definitely be grilled again, and we'll have plenty of talking points. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. Obviously, we had new rules. It's very hard to keep up with it all. But Jonas reminded me. It's reminded me of, like, do you know when you had, like, I don't know, did you ever play Fortnite back in the day, and every time you go to load up the game, it would always have another update that it needed to install? Feels like Gaelic football is kind of going through an endless stage of updates and everything like that. But I'm enjoying it. The games are a lot better. I think I'm seeing a lot of people coming out kind of against us. Like, I seen a clip just before we jumped on the pod here. I'm sidetracking a bit, but I seen a clip of, I think it was Stephen Poacher talking to Off the Ball, and he was blasting the rules, and I wasn't really that surprised. I'm not trying to sound bad, but Poacher was an expert at setting up defensive systems. Like, he was brilliant at doing it with Carlo and things like that, and he's gone in with Leitrim, and it's not been great at all, and he hasn't been able to implement defensive systems, so he's coming out bashing the rules. Like, I was like, well, I am shocked. The games have been more entertaining. And speaking purely from a fan's perspective, speaking purely from somebody who just wants to go to the game, pay the money for the ticket and be entertained, they have been far better. And like, I went to the Dublin Derry game in Croke Park even not that long ago. It was a far better game of Gaelic football than when, for example, I went for Dublin Roscommon or Dublin Louth and things like that. And it was literally just keep ball. The teams are attacking a lot more. There's a lot more scores in games. There's a lot more shots in games. And I think we have a tendency to forget just how boring some of the games were. And while it isn't entirely the rules that I would have made, I think people need to realise whatever it is and whatever rules we're changing, we're moving in the right direction. So looking forward to another good weekend.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll get into the weekend Gaelic games first. So we are sticking with the Gaelic football team in this, and we're looking at the rule change amendments, which Seamus just mentioned there. There's a few of them to look through, but in fairness, like even reading it from probably the easiest place that I can, like some places like the Irish Examiner, the Irish Independent, great work as always, but it gets a bit complicated, and it's very, very hard to understand what is going on and things like that. So bear with us. We're going to try and simplify these rules. I think the big one is the 3-on-3 structure. There won't be 12 out of 11 now. The goalkeeper, he could still come up, but there has to be 4 players on the defensive side back in their own half at all times. So let's take, for example, Armagh. If Ethan Rafferty wants to go up the field, a 4th Armagh defender has to stay back. So that's one rule as well. If the rule is breached in terms of the 4v3 or 3v3 or whatever you want to call it, if that is breached now, according to my understanding of the rules anyway, there will be a free not on right in front of the post, but there'll be a free where the infringement has taken place. So there won't be any easy scores anymore, which is probably a better state of affairs in all honesty. The 2-point scores, well, previously the 2-point days, I'm reading off all our sport on TikTok here, but previously the 2-point score rule stated that 2 points are scored when the ball is played directly over the crossbar between the posts, whether from a free kick, solo goal, or in general play. I think they mean that if a goalkeeper doesn't touch the ball or the ball doesn't go off the post, then it's directly over the bar. But according to this anyway, having been kicked by a player who has at least 1 foot or on or outside the 40-metre arc, and without the ball having been touched by any other player, the word directly has now been deleted from the rule in some cases, the ball might not go over the bar directly and only 1 point will be awarded. For example, if the ball hits the post but still went over the bar between the posts, this is received as 2 points. So we'll have to see how it all kind of plays out this weekend.
That's a great one. And that one as well, you're dodging a potential, crazy situation. Because let's picture if there's a big game in Croke Park down the line and, we need Hawkeye for a score, for example, there's just a lot of potential. I realized myself there. That's why I backed out at that point. Obviously, as if it goes anywhere near the post with Hawkeye, it's wide anyway. But I'm just thinking down the line that if someone scores off the post and the referee disallows it, or gives 1 point for it, they saved themselves some hassle with that one.
Just to put into context, actually, this just came into my brain as well. Conor Sweety's score against Limerick, remember that to equalise in the Munster semi-final during COVID lockdown? That actually would have been given as 1 point before the amendments. That's crazy, That's really its own right. And then the Hooter system is another thing as well. After the Hooter sounds, the end of the first half or full time is signalled by the referee on the next occasion that the ball goes out of play for a score, a wide, or a sideline kick. If a 45 has been awarded but not taken before the Hooter sounds, the free kick can be taken, and if it results in a score without any other player touching the ball, that score shall be awarded. If a penalty has been awarded but not taken before the Hooter sounds, the penalty can be taken, and if it results in a score, that score shall be awarded, provided no one apart from the goalkeeper has touched the ball after the penalty kick has been taken. So you've been crying out for this, Seamus, as well. It's kind of like rugby now, so it's under the ref's discretion.
Yeah.
If the ball, the Hooter sounds, last play. And I think all the players would know then that they either have to attack or defend for their lives. And this is probably a best thing for Gaelic football, because you see the situation in the Westmeath and Meath game. Yes, it was an unreal finish for Conor Duke's goal, and it was a brilliant win for Meath in the end of that Division 2 game. But the confusion around the stadium, that surely will be eradicated now in the next few weeks. Well, hopefully.
Yeah, no, and I want to give the GAA and the FRC massive credit for this one, because they have eradicated what would have come back to bite them down the line, no doubt, in my opinion, because there was a situation in the All-Ireland Intermediate LGFA final a couple of years ago between Clare and Kildare, which is a perfect example of how this could have been a big problem, because Kildare were about to win. Clare had a last-minute attack. A Clare player took a shot for goal just as the hooter went, and a Kildare defender blocked it. So it took it out of the referee's hands that, well, it didn't go into the net anyway. But if that ball flew into the net, it would have been entirely up to the referee's discretion as whether she kicked the ball before the hooter or after the hooter. And we saw it in the Meath and Westmeath game that Meath were given the goal. They got the win because of the goal. And there was huge controversy from the Westmeath side saying that the goal shouldn't have stood. It would have had the potential to come back and bite them down the line in an All-Ireland final or something like that. Could you imagine the controversy if someone took a shot on the hooter and the referee had to basically decide in an instant there who's won the All-Ireland? Like, the carnage that would be going around. So they've saved themselves here. And the added bonus is it also will be more dramatic then. Can you imagine the drama in All-Ireland final if both teams are level, the hooter goes and you know that it's the last play and you know that, this is it. Like, someone might be able to snatch the game here. Yeah, massive credit due to the FRC and the GA for this rule, because it was one that I was calling for. It was one that I felt needed to be made when they brought in the initial rule changes. It's going to add to the game's excitement and drama at the end, and it's also going to save them a potential serious headache down the line. So massive props to them for this one.
It is definitely, and it should be very interesting to see how the rules are implicated this weekend in particular. One thing I wanted to bring up, Seamus, and I've been kind of angered over this over the last few weeks. I did put up a post on this, obviously crediting John Fogarty for the piece on the Irish Examiner in terms of what rule changes have been brought in. And not necessarily Instagram, but there were comments on my Facebook that really, really irked me over the last few weeks. And like some of the comments here, I'm just reading some random comments in here. The next change would be changing the shape of the ball. Way too complicated. Gaelic football is destroyed, would have never missed a county game or club game. Now I have no interest in total shambles. Club football would be a disaster, getting very complicated. They should change champions till 2 weeks later and things like that. Why don't they just leave it alone? Stop calling it GA if you shoot the new rule, if you change the new rules every week, should I say. Clowns, leave the game as it is. They forgot to put looking at the ref sideways. It's a load of ball. I'm not going to say that word. Managers with power said they didn't like it, hence the changes. Totally different game now. They have made it worse. Joke game, ruining the game, gone for days, 6 defenders, 2 midfielders, 6 forwards. Yeah, why all the rule changes? It's nonsense and things like that. Leave the effing game alone, please. What a load of shit, whatever. Has nothing.
Is this all the same guy?
Well, it's not. No, there's different.
Oh no, I thought this was all the same guy. I was like, Jesus, chill out. Like,
there is but there's so many
reading. Calm the fuck down.
There's so many comments on this, Seamus, and it really hurt me saying that. And it reminded me of the clip with RT and Pat's Blad in 2013. The exact quotes. What sort of game do we want? Before these rule changes, a lot of people were complaining about Gaelic football, saying it was dead. Kevin O'Donovan, the Cork CEO, was saying it was unwatchable. Things like that came out in the media. Now things are changing. There's still people complaining.
Yeah.
It's a case where you can't please everybody.
And you'll never be able to please everybody. Like, I literally have a perfect example. I remember I went on the GA hour with Dan Casey, and this was in the wake of the All-Ireland hurling final. And I remember, do you remember this clip where I said Tony Kelly's performance? And I said it's one of the greatest All-Ireland final performances I've ever seen. That's a fairly benign, like, that's a fairly obvious point, isn't it? That's a fairly, like, one of the greatest. And there was multiple comments in being like, how many All-Ireland finals have you been to? You've obviously not been to that many All-Ireland finals, like, hardly the greatest. And it was like, what about Henry Shefflin's performance? I was like, one of. You fuck, like, do you know what I mean? How can you not take the point that I'm saying? So it was just like, I take something that was so obvious, like Tony Kelly had a great game in the All-Ireland final, and people were still moaning and disagreeing and yada yada. So when you change something that is as big as, like, literally changing the game of Gaelic football, people are going to be very irritated by it. And, like, the reality is already people are forgetting. This is the point that I kind of made at the start of the episode. Already people are forgetting just how bad the game was. Like, it was boring. Genuinely, it was boring. Like, you used to, like, it was gas because you used to, like, I used to cut highlights during the old games rules with TG Carr and stuff. And you'd fast forward a little bit into the game to see if, keep an eye on the scoreboard, did anything happen? And you'd see the scoreboard change and you'd be like, oh, I'll show that clip up. There was a score there. This is for, like, live clipping. And then you'd go back, oh, it's a free kick. Okay. And, like, genuinely, the amount of time that would go with no score from play, so that if someone scored, like, a bang average point, you'd feel like you had to put it out because that was one of the highlights of the game. Like, there was, and now we're getting, because of the 2-point act, we're getting fantastic scores. The 2-point act has really encouraged people to take on shots that they wouldn't have taken on before the introduction of the 2-point act. And I remember at the time that they made the real changes, I was calling for something that would have been a lot simpler to implement, which would have been the shot clock. You wouldn't have needed to change too much, in my opinion, because I was looking at it from the point of view of, if I were a manager and the shot clock was in play and you had to, work a score inside 2 minutes out, for example, I would look at my team and go, right, we're not fit enough to get, 12 men behind the ball and then break in 2 minutes and, score every time. So gradually I would start to think, okay, I'm going to need to leave players further up the pitch. I'm going to start to need to leave somebody in the full forward line, etc., etc. And I think gradually you would work your way back to something that is more similar to the game that we saw in the 90s and the 2000s. I think that would have been an easier thing to implement than this entire new rule system. But it's the point that I made at the start was, while I agree with like 80% of the rules that they brought in, we're moving in the right direction. we're moving in the right direction, and that's something that I like. The thing that I don't entirely agree with is, and not necessarily agree with, I'm just unsure of, I would say is a better phrase for it, is how on earth we're going to implement this at club level. Like, because it's one thing to get the inter-county stadiums and have the 40-meter arc and have it, you know, with the right dimensions and it's very clear and everything like that. But I've already seen games where on the TV footage, it's hard to see the 40-meter arc. Like Wexford Wicklow there recently in the Division 4 Allianz League, like that was a good example. Look at the highlights on YouTube. The 40-meter arcs are actually difficult to see. And once you take that to a club championship game, like especially like a junior championship game, and it's on some pitch where it's being cut by just some old fella with his lawnmower, to act like they're going to have a 40-meter arc and it's going to be pristine and clear as day, probably won't be the case. And like the reality is we know that the way that like the social media world works, man, I guarantee in August, September, we're going to have a big enough club team involved in something where a 40-meter arc decision is costly to one team and everybody's going to lose their rag over it and say that, you know, the new rules should have never been changed and they ruined GAA and blah, blah, blah. Like, and I think the people who are involved in the committee, they knew that some people are going to hail them as, you know, to get the people who saved the game, and there's going to be people who said that they ruined the game. And, you know, if there's people that love you, there's people that hate you. That tends to be a bit of a way of life. And if there's people that agree with you, there's going to be people that disagree with you. The reality is, speaking purely from a fan's perspective, the game needed changing. It needed to, like, the one thing that's common in what I would have done with the game, what you would have done with the game, what Jim Gavin would have done with the game, is that something needed to be done. Something needed to be done. Because me and you, grown up, for our entire lives, we've played Gaelic football, loved Gaelic football, always watched Gaelic football. I was finding myself in stadiums bored out of my mind watching Gaelic football. I was like, this is so shit. It's so boring. Like, we're literally having players in Croke Park standing still in the middle of the pitch. We're literally having a Clare inter-county footballer in a club championship doing keepy-uppies. Yeah. I'm like, if you can tell me that can happen in a game and yet we don't need to change it, you're out of your mind. So changes needed to be made. Is everybody going to agree with those changes? No. But the reality is, Jim Gavin and his F4C committee, they literally set up a portal for feedback from the fans. And if you're noticing now, the rules that we have now are very different to the rules that were implemented in the F4C trial games in September. They are listening to the fans. If you don't like one of their rules, make your voice heard. Say, I don't like this. Because they wanted to go 4 points for a goal. The fans didn't like it, and they listened. They changed it. There was worries about the time that we just seen. They've implemented the change. Now the game ends when the ball goes dead. Like, they listen to the fans, which is one thing I've really, really loved about the way they're doing things and really appreciated about the way they're doing things. It's not been like authoritarian in the way they've done it. They're not like, this is what's happening, deal with it. They're very like, let's work together to fix our game.
That's exactly it. And a comment in here from a friend of the show, obviously Liam White. Hope you're all well, Liam. Anyone who was giving out about the new rules just needs a wobble. It became a horrific sport to watch, and now it's actually enjoyable. 100%. 100%. Absolutely agree with you there, Liam.
Whereas if you're someone that likes defensive football, I don't really get it, to be honest. Like, I can understand.
Literally, sorry to interrupt you now, Seamus, but literally the only people that I've heard genuine complaints about this is probably Ulster fans, like Stephen Poulter, for example, as manager Leitrim. The Armagh fans don't like these new rules and the changes. They didn't want change. Why? Because they played defensive football last year and they won the All-Ireland off it.
Loud as well.
That's literally it. Like, that's the fans that didn't want change. Sorry?
Louth under Ger Brennan, another example. They played quite defensive football under Ger, especially last season, and he's been quite against it. And you're just like, because it is changing the way that you're setting up your team tactically and everything like that. The one person I've been surprised has come out about it is Robbie Brennan. He's been very anti. But I think people, if you're anti more attacking, we've had across the board. We've had far more scores. Like, this is just from someone who does the podcast, same as yourself, who, puts all the scores together in a list to talk about the games on shows like this. Like last season in league games, most of the scores you're getting in will be like Team A 112, Team B 12 points. Now we're getting in scores of like Team A 317, Team B 119. And that they're pretty common. The game has got a lot more enjoyable to watch and a lot more entertaining. And the reality is like over time, we'll just get used to these rules. And like people are saying, oh, this is complicated and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's complicated, but like look at the amount of different sports that have complicated rules, and they've just adapted to it. Like that's what I'm saying. I play basketball, and in my head, whenever I pick up the basketball, I know, right, I'm not allowed to go back inside my own court. I know there's a shot clock on us. We need to make this ball move quick. I know don't double dribble. And yet, if you're trying to explain that to someone for the first time, it sounds very complicated. You play soccer. Offside. Oh, it's this invisible line that you're not, and it changes every time that the defenders move. And yet,
another thing in soccer, Seamus, and many people might not know this about soccer actually, but the back pass was a thing. You could pass back to the goalkeeper. He could pick it up in the 1960s and the 1970s. They changed that, and now
But again, point is like they adapted. They adapted to the change, and Gaelic football players are smart. And they will adapt to these changes. We're in the infancy stages of it. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but the reality is it's far more entertaining. And I think this weekend will be another good showcasing of that.
It definitely will, no doubt about it. And we will get into the games. Just a comment in here before we get started from Johnny Aim here. Big fan of the channel, Matthew. The red and white of Loud are coming to get you on Sunday. We'll see.
Let's get into that game now.
Yeah, we will. We'll start off at Division 1, as we always do. I would start off with the first game chronologically. It is Kerry against Armagh in Austin Park in Tralee on Saturday at 5:30 p.m. live on RT2. It's sandwiched in between the rugby games of France and Scotland and Ireland initially. So you've rugby, Gaelic football, and then rugby again on RT2. So good, a good run of sport. And then you have a movie, I think a rugby movie or an American football movie after that as well. So it's day of sport at RT2. So anybody that is tuning into RT2, do tune in. But in terms of the Gaelic football here, Kerry are third from bottom in the Division 1 season. And to be honest, like if Kerry lose this game, they could be in trouble. Like Armagh maybe so as well. They're on 5 points at the moment, Kerry are on 4. But you have to feel like, Seamus, whoever loses this game could be in trouble, could be looking over their shoulder going into the last game of the league campaign.
Yeah, and for whoever loses this game, it's kind of a crazy situation that they find themselves, dealing with this, because either you've got Kerry potentially facing relegation, which is crazy, or you've got the current reigning All-Ireland champions. So regardless of what way it goes, it's going to be a big one. And it's 2 huge games for both of these teams. I think if you're looking at kind of who's had a more impressive league out of these two, again, that's difficult to call. I think Armagh have had the more impressive wins, but I've also had probably the more embarrassing defeats. So it's a really, really hard one to call. Kerry have been slightly more consistent in terms of their level. I was most impressed with them in the Tyrone game because they really, really dug that one out of the fire. But the loss to Mayo was a bad day at the office, and like I'd look at it this way and be like, Jack O'Connor, I think, in my opinion, it could turn on him a lot here. I think if Kerry don't win the All-Ireland this season, I think Jack's gone. So I'd be interested to know where they're at. Whereas Armagh, like McGeaney has the All-Ireland, he has as long as he wants. Like genuinely, after win the All-Ireland, he's golden. So I think Kerry need this more than Armagh do. And I think that needs to be a factor that is considered.
Definitely so. Like, is there a possibility that Kerry go down here? Because, like, if they lose this game, 4 points, like, you're looking over, Tyrone are only a point behind. We'll get on to Tyrone's game against Donegal in a bit. But yeah, this is a serious situation, actually, for Kerry. And I can't actually remember.
And the thing is, speaking from a Dublin fan's perspective, that went down in 2022, it becomes real very quickly. Like all of a sudden, it's like once you lose one critical game that you expected to win, it's like
yeah, you just all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're in big trouble here. Like I remember the game that turned it for me in 2022 was when we lost to Mayo in Croke Park. Like that was the one, because then I remember we still had some very tough away days like Monaghan and everything, and I remember being like, I think we're gone. So yeah, it can go wrong very, very quickly. And when you look kind of at other things, I think that the Kerry will still be safe. Like Tyrone have to go away to Donegal this weekend. I think Derry will go down. And then Tyrone after the Donegal game have to play Dublin. So Tyrone have to get, something out of both of those games in order to catch Kerry. And I think they probably won't. So I think Kerry will be safe, but not by anything that they do.
And worth noting as well, Kerry's last game against Galway, and we will get on to Galway and Dublin coincidentally next. But if Galway, just a spoiler alert, but if Galway win that game against Dublin, they're already promoted, and there could be a situation where Galway just rest their players against Kerry. So yeah, I just have to put that in.
Fantasy division.
Oh, promote! Oh, sorry. League final is what I should say there. But yeah, Galway. My point is Galway will probably face second team against Kerry if they beat Dublin this weekend, which could see Kerry safe. But look at Kerry's. Well, they've lost 2 of their home games, which is really, really weird. And then the games they have won, they've looked unconvincing, if anything. And then Armagh, like you look at the games they have lost against Galway and Donegal, they've been poor enough in those games. The draw against Mayo, they were poor in the second half of that game. And then the wins they've got brilliant wins. So is it almost like a consistency issue for that Armagh side at this present moment of time?
Absolutely. It's been consistency that's been the issue for them from the get-go in the league. I think we knew that we weren't going to see them come out at 100 miles an hour. Like they are the reigning All-Ireland champions. They are going to have a little bit of a hangover from the All-Ireland. In fact, if I was an Armagh fan, I wouldn't be that bothered, to be honest, of where they're at, because they've shown glimpses of what they're capable of. The consistency hasn't been great, but like they have all the boys back in. They've Rian O'Neill back in the panel. Like that's something that you would have been kind of monitoring if you were an Armagh fan. They've shown what they're capable of. Like they beat Dublin in a very impressive performance. They beat Tyrone in a very impressive performance. Look, they were shite against Galway and what was the other game that they lost? Sorry again.
Donegal.
Donegal, yeah, they were bad in that one. But like the wins, they showed what they're capable of again. They reminded everybody what they're capable of. And I wouldn't be that worried, to be honest. I think even if they lose this game to Kerry, I think they're going to be safe.
And do you think the Kerry's want will be enough to get them over the line this one?
I think so. I think Kerry are going to do enough to get over the line in this one. I think you look at it this way, they usually find a way to save themselves when it comes down to it. They usually find a way. The fact that it's at home is massive. I still look at it and be like, okay, Donegal and Dublin did go down to Kerry and they did beat them, but they had to go through the trenches to beat them. I think Kerry will realise how much like this is real now. Like, you can't afford to lose another home game. Because that's the point that we've been making since the start of the league, is that if you lose your home games, you've got a big problem. And if Armagh can go down to Kerry and beat them, that's my point. Is like, the fact is Armagh probably have done enough to stay up. Probably. Not 100% sure, but I think that they'll be okay. Kerry haven't done enough yet. That draw that Armagh have against Mayo, knocking them up to 5 points, has put them, in my opinion, just about, not 100% safe, but probably safe. Kerry aren't there yet, and they need something. And they're at home to an Armagh team that definitely aren't at 100%. I think it's Kerry's to lose, in my opinion. I'm going with the Kingdom.
Yeah, I'd probably go for Kerry as well. They haven't played to their potential as of yet, but I would say the want will be enough for Kerry to get over the line this one. And I think I'll agree with you. I'll go for Kerry to win that one. Dublin against Galway, I thought about this just briefly during the Kerry and Armagh segment. This game is on in Croke Park on Saturday at 7:30 on TG Carr. The permutations are here because of the way the fixtures are falling. If Galway do beat Dublin, they're in a league final. And I'm just looking at the permutations if they draw this game. Not yet. because Dublin can still catch Galway, even though like they're 20 in score difference behind Galway. So they're technically, you would say, in a league final if they draw this game even. So do you think Galway will do enough to get to the league final in this game?
Again, difficult one to know because I've seen Dublin play in Croke Park this season and twice actually against Mayo and against Derry. I have to say I've been impressed with them on both occasions. The free-flowing football that we played, especially against Derry, like I know that Derry weren't great, especially in the second half, but you still have to play what's in front of you. And the reality is Dublin were definitely allowed by Derry to play that free-flowing attacking football, but I was still really impressed with what I saw. Galway coming in it's a completely different kettle of fish because Derry are coming in off the back of defeats and failing to pick up crucial wins. Galway are unbeaten, 3 wins, 2 draws. They're yet to taste defeat, so they've got a lot more confidence in the way that they're playing football right now. And obviously they're returning to a ground in which they beat Dublin last year. So Galway are going to have zero fear about this game. They're probably going to strut into this stadium expecting to beat Dublin. Can they do it? I'm not so sure. I actually fancy Dublin to take this one. I think the fact that it's at home, like it is, it's at Croke Park. They have more experience playing in that stadium than Galway do. They got a bit of payback to get for last season as well. So the Desi won't lack in motivation and options of how to motivate the players. Just remind them how painful it was to go out of the championship last year to go away at the quarterfinal stage. That will rile the players up. You got an opportunity to be their first defeat of the league campaign this season and potentially get into a league final. Like if you win this game and then you beat Tyrone, there's a good chance that we're there. So especially when you look at like Donegal and Galway have definitely more difficult provincial championships to go through than Dublin do. I could see Desi being like, lads, we might as well. Like if we put the foot down here, we could find ourselves in the league final. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Dubs.
Interesting. Like, Porridge has always said that he wants to get to a league final, that he wants to win the league for Galway. He's put it out there. I'm not sure Jim McGuinness is the same, but look at the permutations as well. If
crazy that's a realistic topic, isn't it? That's a realistic argument. The only thing is that the only time McGuinness came out and basically insinuated that he wasn't going for the league 100% was when Donegal got battered by Galway. That was when he basically came out and dropped hints that he wasn't trying. It's like, oh, fun, didn't want to win anyway. But yeah, like, I don't know. I think they're trying more than they want to let on.
Yeah, it's a difficult one kind of to comprehend in many ways. But the permutations are of Donegal, we're tying in a lot of games, as you could hear or see on the podcast now, because there's a lot of permutations that can happen. But if Donegal, I know we'll discuss it in just a little bit, as always. Donegal are playing Tyrone this weekend. If Donegal win that game, Dublin and Galway, if what you're saying is correct this weekend, if Dublin do beat Galway, Dublin would be ahead of Galway because of the head-to-head record. So Dublin are in the driving seat then of a league final. So that could be another kind of angle as well to look at. But yeah, it's a difficult one to call. I'd probably go for Dublin. You've kind of swayed me, I would say. Like the fact it's on in Croke Park as well, Dublin will be used to it. It's a much better Dublin team this time round. I think it's a much more settled Dublin team than it was last year. I think the Armagh game, Daisy was clearly unhappy with that performance, so they want to bounce back with a decent performance as well. That's another angle as well. I think Dublin will win that game. I'd actually agree with you on that one. And yeah, it'll be a very interesting game. But yeah, I think Dublin will do enough to win it. I'll agree with you on that one. I may as well go to Donegal and Tyrone. I know it's not chronological and stuff like that, but we may as well stick with the promotion team. Donegal are on 8 points at the moment. Well, this game in particular against Tyrone is on Sunday at 3:30 on TG Cahir in Donegal. Donegal are on 8 points. Obviously, Tyrone want to survive. Obviously, they're on 3 points. So, is this another indication of a team that wants it more? Like, can Tyrone beat this Donegal team?
No, this one again is another massive one. I think if you're talking about who wants it more, it's no question Tyrone will need this. Tyrone need this. It's not a question of who wants it. If Tyrone lose this game, they are perilously close to the drop. Like perilously close. Because then they got Dublin on the final day and they need Kerry to screw up big time. Like they need Kerry because then above them they have Mayo, who they lost to, and Armagh, who they lost to. So they're against, they're down on the head-to-heads to both of them. So the only team that Tyrone can catch is Kerry. And they need Kerry to, have less points than them because they've lost to Kerry as well. So that's why losing those games to Kerry and Mayo were damning in terms of the points, because obviously, it's a 4-point swing. Instead of them getting those points that realistically they should have got, Kerry and Mayo got them. And so that's why I wouldn't be too down on Tyrone either, because I watched those games and watched them back on the highlights as well. And my takeaway from it is, you play that game again, Tyrone have a very good chance of closing it out. And Tyrone could be sitting on 7 points here, above Dublin in third place. And the whole outlook on their campaign would be different. But again, it's shoulda, woulda, coulda. Like, they're in the position that they're in. The table doesn't lie. They failed to close out those games. And the Mayo one was one where I really felt like they had that one. The Kerry one was even more so. Like, they really left that one behind them. But they are where they are, and they need to have more points than Kerry when this is done. That's their only way out of the hole that they find themselves in. So they need to go away to Donegal and beat them. And if there's one team, well, you could maybe argue Derry or Armagh, but Donegal certainly won't hesitate at a chance to put a nail in Tyrone's coffin and to potentially contribute to Tyrone's relegation. It's a huge opportunity for Donegal to get a massive win and deepen the fears of relegation for Tyrone, which I don't think McGuinness will want to pass up on. If you read his book, if you look at his doc, you realise just how obsessed he was with beating Tyrone in the 2000s and the 2010s and everything like that. And obviously then when he took over actually in 2011, how much he had his eyes set on beating Tyrone. I don't think that will ever leave him. I think he any chance he gets to beat Tyrone and, ensure dominance in Ulster, he's not going to turn it down. So for me, I think Donegal will win this game, even though Tyrone need it more.
I think this game kind of hinders on Jim McGuinness's team selection. If he plays,
and then that's it, actually, right? That's it, isn't it? If Kerry win and Tyrone lose, it's done.
If Kerry win and Tyrone lose, but obviously we'll get on to, we're tying in a load of games now, but we'll get on to the next game, Mayo against Derry. That could have implications as well. Tyrone aren't necessarily done, depending on our predictions, obviously, for the Mayo Derry game. You know what? We'll throw it up. Derry against Mayo. This is it, Derry, obviously, on Sunday at 1:30 on TG Car. There's a lot of permutations here, right? Yeah. Okay, the simplest one in terms of this game between Derry and Mayo. If Mayo win, Derry are relegated. They're gone.
Yeah.
If they win, Mayo are dragged back into the relegation dogfight. And worth noting as well, if three sides are level on the same number of points, it goes out to scoring difference. Now look at this. Tyrone are -6, Mayo are -8. I don't think Mayo want to lose this game in particular. We may as well tie the two games in together. But first of all, first question, are Derry going down this weekend?
Oh, I don't know. Because the one thing is they've shown a lot of fight in every game that they've played. Bar the Dublin one, I'd say. But apart from that one, they've shown a lot of fight. Like the Donegal game, they really, really dug in that one. The Galway one at home, they really dug in for the draw there in that game. The Kerry one, the quality of the games that Derry have played in has been really, really good. And they've really still, their players like Conor Glass, Shane McGuigan, Brendan Rodgers, they still look good. It's just they haven't had that difference maker that they seemed to have last season, and the ability to close out games. They haven't seemed to have that same X factor, I'd say, that they had last season, in terms of they were getting over the line in really tight games last year and actually winning games quite comfortably last year. That this year they're failing to get over the line, but they still look like they still are. How would I say? They're showcasing the talent that is still in the team. Players like Lachlan Murray were really impressive against Donegal and things like that. And it's at home. It's like Derry. I think Derry are going to realise this could be a massive route to their potential way out. It's not a stupid thing to say that Derry could still pull themselves out of this hole. If they beat Mayo, all of a sudden Mayo are very much within reach. I think it's very possible that Tyrone lose this weekend, So then Derry all of a sudden are in the driving seat to save themselves. So like, the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, Mayo, even though they've beaten Kerry and Tyrone, like they were home games, and I haven't been that impressed with them over the entire course of the league. Even the game against Tyrone where they won, they made hard work of it. Like, and I don't know. In Pork Nageltuck, Derry need the fight tooth and nail for it, I imagine. Mm-hmm. We saw last year when Derry were in the mud, like it was all falling apart around them. They still pulled it together enough to beat Mayo on penalties. I'm not writing them off again. I'm actually going Derry.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think Derry will win. First of all, they're at home. They need a reaction just before the Ulster Championship does begin. Number 2 as well, they need to win this game to save themselves. And number 3, Mayo, it's hard to know where they're at. So I feel like Derry will do enough to win this game. And as actually, for the record, moving back to the other game, I do think Tyrone will beat Donegal. Because I don't think Jim will take it seriously. I really don't. He said he's put it out very, very clear. He doesn't want to make a league final, considering Donegal played Derry in the first round of the preliminary round of the Ulster Championship.
What's the strategy for this weekend then? Did it just go out and like not give a shit? Like just go out and start kicking?
Well, he did it. He did it against Galway, didn't he?
Did he? Like, I mean, it's a brilliant tactic to be like, oh, don't care anyway. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like, for example, the Jake Paul Mike Tyson boxing match, and then all the Mike Tyson fans came out after and were like, oh, it must have been rigged. Like, oh, this, that, they just, and that's not the best example, but like, someone that their ego can't accept that they lost, and they're like, oh, I wasn't trying anyway. Didn't want to win anyway. Like, that sounds like the stupidest analysis ever, but like that Donegal were going into a game against Galway and not trying is not true. They obviously wanted to go and get the win there in Galway. Was Jim devastated when they lost? No, it wouldn't have hit him the same way that the championship did. But Jim McGuinness is a winner. Like, he is someone who wants to win in everything that he does. He's someone who wants to push the standards in everything that he does. To act like he would happily go and lose a game, I don't buy it. Especially not to Tyrone. Like, no way. No way are they going to do this. And like, you look at it as well, all of the great managers, Mourinho, Ferguson, like, any other coach, Phil Jackson with the Chicago Bulls, any great coach, when they have a bad day at the office, it's deflect. Find something else to put it on. Ferguson would always talk about the referees or the fixture list. Mourinho would always talk about the fixture list. Like, Ferguson literally came out one time and blamed United's grey third choice away kit. Like, said, oh, straight up the players don't like the grey strip. And like, it was always to deflect. And I think McGuinness is fresh off the back of a bad performance with Donegal. And he's straight away saying, look, the league isn't the be all and end all. And he's completely, just by that one comment, he's completely changed the way people are talking about their performance. That then nobody went into how bad Donegal were in that first half. Instead, it was all about, well, the league doesn't matter. Masterstroke. He just controlled the media. He just moved the conversation. The conversation was not about the fact that at one point in the first half, Galway were leading by 17 points to 0. The conversation was, who really cares about the league? And that is a masterstroke by McGuinness.
It's going to be very interesting to see what TV puts out. It'll be very, very interesting, no doubt about it. But I'm back in Tyrone to beat Donegal. You're back in Donegal. We're both back in Derry to beat Mayo. We'll see what happens this weekend.
Wait. By the end, if I'm trying to work it out then, so is that the last game, yeah? We've done 4.
We've done 4, yeah.
So I've said that Dublin will beat Galway. So then Dublin will jump above Galway. Donegal will be on 10 points for me. Dublin will be on 8, tied with Galway, but in second. And Galway will be in third. I said that Armagh would lose to Kerry. So Kerry will be on 6 points then. They'll be in 4th place. Armagh will be on 5. Mayo will be on 5. Derry will be actually on 3, but still behind Tyrone because of the head-to-head. And that will be it going into the final day.
Yeah. So according to your predictions, it'll be Armagh, Mayo, Tyrone and Derry in the relegation kind of playoff. And Tyrone play against Dublin. Derry are up against... Who are Derry playing in the last game? Trying to figure this out now. I think... Is it Armagh? Yeah. It's Armagh, yeah. So that's the game.
That could be nuts. Skin and hair flying in that one. I'm out of the wake up for that one.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, we're talking about ifs, buts and babies there, but we'll have to see what happens this weekend, first of all. But moving on to Division 2, and this game, I think, is self-explanatory. Meath against Monaghan. This is at the TG Car Player app in Park Talton on Sunday at 2 p.m. Both sides at 8 points. I think the winner of this game, it's safe to say, it won't be guaranteed 100%, but I think the winners of this game is put themselves completely in the driving seat of being promoted to Division 1.
Yeah, completely agree. This one is pretty much make or break for both teams, because I think for Monaghan more so, I think when you initially get relegated from a division, I think the first year that you're down in said division, I think you feel a lot of anxiety in order to get back up straight away. I feel like if you miss the boat initially, it feels like it's a lot harder to then get up the second season, because, you know, you still have most of the players, most of the squad that got you to Division 1 in the first place. And Monaghan still have the majority of the team that consistently stayed up in Division 1 in previous years. So they'll feel the need to bounce back quick and get back up to the level that they feel they should be at. Meath, at the start of the year, I don't think many people would have picked Meath to be in the position that they're in right now. Like, I definitely wouldn't have been surprised if they stayed up, but I also wouldn't have been surprised, to be honest, if they got relegated. I was looking at Robbie Brennan coming in, great coach, but a lot of transition work needed to be done. And he has really, really done well with this Meath team. They've got some very, very impressive wins. Even the game that they lost to Cork on the opening day, they were good in that game. Cork were just a little bit better. Meath have yet to have a bad performance. Like, even the game against Westmeath were just really good. They were really up for it. In every game, Meath have put up good scores, and they've shown grit, determination in most of their games as well. And as someone who wants to see the Dublin-Meath rivalry back, it's positive. I want to see Meath come back. The GAA needs Meath back, because they were box office, and they had a character about them. And I'm not saying that this Meath team will be exactly like the 90s ones, but it's taking a step back in the right direction. And if they can get this win against Monaghan, it will be massive for them. But let's not forget, it's a question of, are they ready for it as well? And that's going to sound really dismissive and kind of demeaning, but like, Roscommon and Monaghan are seasoned with Division 1. They've been in Division 1.
Well, I'd argue something there, Seamus. I don't think Monaghan are just either with the players that have left the battle.
Yeah, but there's far more experience of Division 1 in the Monaghan team.
There probably is,
like
yes.
Darren Hughes is still there. Killian Lavelle, Rory Began.
But Darren Hughes could be gone next year.
He might be, but then they still have Micheál Bannig and Stephen O'Hanlon. Like, the majority of them lads, Gary Mohan, like, they've all played Division 1. David Garland, like, most of them played in Division 1 with Monaghan over the last couple of seasons. Meath, not really anyone. And the other thing as well is when they were under Andy McEntee in 2018, I believe it was, they got promoted and they got up to Division 1 a year too soon. They lost all 7 games and went back down to Division 2 with their tail between their legs. And they went backwards a lot over the next 2 years under Andy McEntee before eventually he left. And I do think that the whipping that they got in Division 1 was bad for their development. I would look at Robbie Brennan and be like, this could be a Derry type situation for Meath, in my opinion, where if they are pushing for promotion the entire time out of Division 2, and let's say that they just slip up, just like Derry did a couple of years ago when they lost to Roscommon. If they slip up and miss the boat, it might not be the worst thing in the world. Because then what happened the next year when Derry missed? Sorry, they drew at Roscommon and they lost to Galway. That's how they missed the boat. But the next year then when it came back around, Derry were ready for it from the get-go. They were like on smoke from the start. They were not a question in the world they were going up. And if Meath can continue building their team, they could be in a fantastic position to go up next year. But the two teams that come down from Division 1 will be stronger than Monaghan and Roscommon.
This is what I'm. Yeah, but this is what I mean. This could be. This is the time to go up because I think Monaghan, well, not Roscommon. I do think they're brilliant players, but there is kind of a yo-yo kind of mentality about Roscommon. But in terms of Monaghan, I don't think the players are there like they were over the last few seasons. And you have sides in Division 2 that have done well against this Monaghan team, and like Roscommon beat them quite comprehensively at Dr. Hyde Park. We'll see what Meath do this weekend. Cork, I know they lost by 7 points to Monaghan, but I thought they dominated Monaghan in midfield that day. The midfielders aren't there for Monaghan anymore. That's natural. It's a small county. You can't keep churning out players and keep expecting some big results and things like that. But I think from me point of view, Monaghan have been there. And I think Monaghan actually, and I spoke to Stephen Galogly on the Subject Star podcast a few weeks ago, and he actually did agree that staying in Division 2 for Monaghan, if it was to come to pass, wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for that Monaghan team because they are a young team. There's a lot of transition there. Gabriel Bannigan is manager. Whereas I think with Meath, this might be their one and only shot to go back up. There might be that element as well.
Potentially. I wouldn't say they're one and only shot, given that it's Brennan's first year. But yeah, I do think whichever two teams come down, be it Derry and Tyrone, be it Derry and Mayo, Derry and Armagh, or Armagh, Tyrone, whoever comes down will be in pole position to go straight back up. And I think it will be like a Donegal and Armagh situation where they'll come down, they'll just go straight back up. And so for these two, Meath and Monaghan, this is their best chance to get up when you're comparing this year and next year. It's again though, it's like that point that I made about Meath earlier. Like I do believe that. I do believe you can go up too soon. And if you get on the wrong end of some whippings, especially with these new rules, like once a team gets a beating, it tends to be a pretty bad beating. The fact it's in Port Talton, the fact that Meath have home advantage, I think is a massive, massive benefit to them. Meath and Monaghan always produce really, really good games as well. Looking at the score difference, Monaghan have 6 points more in their favour. It's nothing between them. The fact that Meath have beaten Roscommon tells me like their ceiling is actually quite high. Like beating Roscommon the way that they did was really, really impressive. And that was in Port Talton. If Roscommon went to Port Talton and lost, I'm actually fancying Meath for this one.
I am as well. I am fancying this Meath team.
With the form of him and the likes of Jordan Morris, Owen Frayne,
Connor Duke.
Yeah. They look the business. Yeah.
They look good. They really look good. And even in the game against Cork, I was impressed with some of them. I was really impressed with Jack Flynn in midfield, actually. Yeah, what a player he is. Like, really good player.
He was a huge miss last season because he shot the lights out in the Tailteann Cup final. And then he took the year out. And him being gone was a massive blow to O'Rourke last season with Meath. Not saying he would have made a difference in terms of the games that they lost. Like, they still would have lost Dublin, whether he was on the pitch or not. And I don't think they would have made it further than they did. But he improves the team. And the fact that he's back now, Robbie Brennan, who, in my opinion, is a better manager, like it's another welcome return.
Yeah. Yeah, but I feel like, I'd agree with you. I'm going to go for Meath win as well. And,
actually, one more thing. Sorry to go gross. I wonder what the Meath training sessions are like. Given that all the players know that their manager thinks that these rules are a load of bollocks.
Jeez, I don't know. It's going to be... That's an interesting kind of angle. We'll have to get a fly in the wall to dissect it. But yeah, we're both going for a Meath win against Monaghan this one. The other game is in terms of the promotion challenges, Roscommon against Cavan. Roscommon on 8 points, Cavan on 6. This is in Dr. Hyde Park on Sunday at 2 p.m. Cavan are technically still in the promotion charge, but you'd feel like Roscommon at home, they're on the cusp of 10 points if they win this game. You'd have to imagine they'll win this game. Even though Cavan, credit to them, they've done absolutely brilliant to drag themselves out of the hole like they have done in winning their last 3 games, but you feel like Roscommon will win this one.
Yeah, I agree with you on both assessments of the teams. Like Cavan definitely found themselves in trouble after their first 2 games. A lot of people, including myself, were having serious doubts about them. I picked them at the start of the league campaign to finish 5th. I'm actually feeling quite confident in that. I think that they might finish 5th when it's all said and done. This is a very difficult game for them. They're going away to a Roscommon team that, like, it seems to be in their DNA. This is what they do. They get promoted out of Division 2, and they have a game at home in which they can bounce back from the slip up that they had against Meath. I don't think they're going to take a second chance. I think they're literally going to be like, yeah, 100%. This is at home. This is a banker. We need to get this win and we need to get promoted. Yeah, I see Roscommon making it 10 points, joining Meath, and then the 2 of them going up from that point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to go for Roscommon to win that game as well, but Cavan to make it very difficult for their opponents. And Paddy Lynch apparently is going to come back for the championship, so that's a good sign for Cavan, and they might have a good season after that. Just before we get on to the next game, and this is a spoiler, what game is next? Cork to beat Loud, hopefully Sunday, says Colin Ehrman. Okay. We'll move on to the next game. Cork against Loud in Super Valley Park Heath on Sunday, 2 p.m. And it goes without saying I'm going to this game, cover it for the Southern Star. And we'll mention the Southern Star as well. Myself and Ciara McCarthy talked about this game on the Star Sport podcast this week. And we both agreed, from a Cork point of view, one word to describe this, it's a must win. If Cork lose this game, they're in massive trouble. And not just relegation, but in terms of the Tailteann Cup as well. And John Cleary, I'm sure, does not want to be in that competition. There's no doubt about that. And as well, with the commentary about Cork football and things like that, it's negativity in the media. You had some delegates in the county board meeting saying that it's bang out of order, that Cork football isn't being treated right and things like that. Hurling is thriving, obviously, but Cork football isn't. And there's a lot of talk. But it's amazing, Seamus, how the kind of narrative changes. Like after round 3 against Westmeath, I was thinking to myself, okay, this is a positive for Cork. Cork, we're doing well enough. We've won 2 games. Even against Down, we were very, very unlucky. Monaghan, even after that, I was thinking we dominated their midfield. There is a platform to push on. Yes, Roscommon are a good side, but it was the manner of the defeat in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, 14 points, and some of the goals that Cork gave away in that game were so worrying. And it's going to be very, very hard how they drag themselves out of this hole. And John Cleary has been mentioned post-match interviews in previous weeks about injury issues. But I will say this, you can't use it as an excuse in this game. Loud have Craig Lennon out injured. They're all-star from last year. Kieran Downey's out. Kieran Keenan's out. Bevan Duffy's out. Dan Corcoran's out. And the fact Samuel Roy scored 112 out of their possible 121, all from frees as well. I feel like Cork have to win this game in Super Valley Páirc Uí Chaoimh at the weekend. But again, it's going to be difficult. Loud have won 3 out of the last 5 games against Cork, but worth pointing out that stat, Cork have only played Loud once in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and they won that game. So maybe home advantage could be the trick to do it for Cork. But what do you think about this game?
Yeah, you've spelled it out very well there. Looking at the table, Loud and Cork both on 4 points down, on 2 points just below them. Down have obviously the head-to-head on Cork, and if I'm not mistaken, Down still have to play Westmeath. So Cork are in a position that it could get pretty hairy for them if they don't bail themselves out, and they're in a position where they can pick up a win here that they probably should get. If we're being honest, Louth have made a lot of progress in the last few years, and there's been no one who's admired it more than I have. I've been really, really impressed with what they've done. Whether under Mickey Hart or Ger Brennan, they've been really, really excellent over the last few seasons. But this still is a game that Cork should win. You listed all the players that Louth have out: Craig Lennon, Kieran Keenan, Dan Corcoran, Bevan Duffy. Like, these guys are the bread and butter of that Louth team. And I really, really think with home advantage as well, if Cork are losing these games, again, it's a question of where are they at? Because I know that a lot of players have obviously moved away from the panel for Cork this season, but the 15 that they have out on the pitch should still be good enough to get the job done in this one. Won't be easy at all, because Louth are not an easy team to play against. But I do think Cork will win this one. I think they're like the form that they showed in the Meath game, the scoring capacity that they showed in that one. Again, as like I'm saying, like the league shows what you're capable of. The league shows what you can do in a one-off game. And Cork are capable of shooting the lights out, especially in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And I think that given the situation that they're in, given the predicament they're in, given how tough it could get for them if they don't pull themselves out of the fire here, I'd back them to get over the line in this one. But again, it's crazy how the times change, because you're talking now that like obviously hurling is thriving and every bit of momentum is behind the hurlers. You go back 15 years to 2010, Cork were All-Ireland football champions and the hurling was all over the place. Like that they had just come off the back of the strike and didn't seem to know if they were coming or going, and they were miles off Tipperary and Waterford, and it's just crazy how much things change.
Exactly. So, and Liam makes a very good point as well in terms of Cork football and all that. What told you the story about the difference between hurling and football in Cork is the attendance at the Roscommon and Kilkenny games. And yeah, I was there. Like, I to be honest, I wasn't actually shocked at what happened that night after the Kilkenny fans. Like, literally, I'm not making this up. There was a fan beside me in the media box during the Cork and Roscommon game, or Cork and Kilkenny game, should I say. And straight after the final whistle in the Kilkenny game, he was just tapping me on the shoulder, best of luck in the football. Left. That is the attitude in Cork football at this present moment in time. And
what is it? Is it just pockets of areas in Cork that are just kind of, is it like Galway, that like there's pockets that just can't stand football and vice versa?
Yes, I think the city and East Cork are predominantly hurling areas. And the city is absolutely, it's crazy in its own right, because Nima Rangers and St. Fintan Bars are both based in the city. Mm-hmm. But then you go to West Cork and you go to clubs like Nottingham Green, who Daniel O'Malley's from, coincidentally, on the border with Kerry. And then you have the football areas. But then it's all hurling. You looked at the hurling supporters last year, like they were all on the bandwagon. They were all behind the hurlers. And rightly so, obviously, it was a brilliant spectacle the Cork put up in the hurling last season. But that kind of affects the footballers as well. Like, you look at, I'm not making excuses on the performance against Roscommon and all that, but as soon as the fans kind of leave, I mean, as soon as the players come out at halftime of the Cork and Kilkenny game, getting a feel of the pitch and just saying, wow, there's actually a big crowd here in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. But then when they go out on the pitch, then the stadium's almost empty. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, does the confidence kind of drain out of the players then?
Yeah, that would hurt. I have no doubt that Cork probably did that as a ploy to get maybe more fans watching the footballers than would have if they had that as kind of a standalone fixture, or if they had the football as the curtain raiser to the hurling. But maybe it was TV. Yeah, that's actually the other thing. It probably was just TV. Sorry, I'll strike that one off. But TV sometimes affects the throw-in time, obviously, if they're trying to fit it into the schedule and everything like that. That's why they usually throw in at half one, half three, things like that. But yeah, for the footballers, like, they would have gone out on the pitch, seen a big crowd, and then not as big a crowd for the second game. That definitely would have been a tough one to take. And it's heartbreaking, man, because like, again, this is a county that is, I think, like, some serious history. Like, 1990, first county to win the double, 2010, and throughout the 2010s were, definitely late 2000s, early 2010s, were right up there every year as one of the first teams you pick to win the All-Ireland. And yeah, it's just that period in the late 2010s, I think, did a lot of damage to the Cork football fans, because all of a sudden Cork fell from being a team that were right up there to 2017, 2018, nearly losing to Waterford in the Munster Championship and everything like that. And I think that sucker punches, like, and I experienced it even in a year with Dublin, for example, from that perspective, 2019, like, like 2019, we beat Galway in Parnell Park and we got out of the Leinster Championship, and then Laois beat us. And you're like, the year finishes with like such a punch to the gut. Like, all Dublin fans now just remember that year as that's the year we lost to Laois. And it's not now the year that it should have been. It's not the year that is remembered for the, famous night down in Parnell Park where we beat Galway. It's remembered for a pretty low point in Dublin hurling. So that definitely has an impact on attendances. And even when Dublin do the double headers where the hurlers are on before the footballers, like, take a look at the Hill during the first half of the Dublin Offaly game compared to the first half of the Dublin Derry game. Most Dublin fans will only time they're turning up for the football. They'll be in the pub around the corner from the stadium and they'll walk up for maybe the last 15 minutes of hurling and then the football.
Yeah, exactly. And Liam makes an excellent point here. As always, Liam White, absolutely brilliant. To be fair, when we played Laois back-to-back, that's Offaly, a lot of people from both counties left after the hurling before the football. I suppose it depends on which areas is more interested in each sport.
Yeah.
That's it. That's easy. It also depends on, I suppose, if the teams are successful.
Well, it's all timing as well. It's that was successful, but timing, because this is speaking from a very local perspective, but Na Fianna, in my eyes, would have always been more of a football club. Like, they're right down the road from me in Whitehall, Colm Kilsman. And I would have always looked at Na Fianna and the players that they produced over the years, from Jason Sherlock to Senan Connell to Desi Farrell. And I would always, to Johnny Cooper, own merchant in the present day, but I would always looked at them as more of a football club. And they always seem to be a bit more interested in the football. But over the last 10 years, they've put in savage work with the hurling. And all of a sudden, they were producing players like Donald Burke. Joey Boland was one of the first ones that I seen. Tomas Brady, those lads were Na Fianna. And then they produced like a golden crop with the Kerry brothers, Donald Burke, Shane Barrett. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a team that is good enough to go on and win the All-Ireland Club Hurling Championship. And now if you go to Na Fianna, you'll always see people whipping around with the hurls. And it feels now, just from someone observing the club, there's a feeling more of a hurling vibe off the club now. And that's just because they've had their golden period with hurling.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a very interesting discussion. Maybe for another day we'll discuss it even more once the championship does kick off. But we are both back in probably Cork to win this game. I feel like Cork are coming back from a vacation kind of thing in Portugal as well. Hopefully that will wake up the players in many ways and realise the situation that they are in. And I think that should be enough. And home advantage, obviously. Louth are coming down a long way, which is worth noting as well, and the injury issues that they do have at this present moment in time. But Louth could easily be Cork, no doubt about it. Last game of Division 2 down against Westmeath on Saturday evening in Park Esther, Newry at 6 p.m. If Westmeath loses, if Westmeath loses or relegated, is there any hope you give Westmeath here, Seamus?
No. Sorry, but Down are also have the gun to their head. And they have home advantage. Now, one thing that you can't discount is that Westmeath did beat Down last season in the league final, so it still is plausible that they win. But no, I can't see them going to Park Esler and beating a Down team that, yes, they have had 4 defeats, but they've been very, very competitive in every one of the games that they played. Like the Roscommon one, they were right in there until Kieran Murtagh's late goal, which put the game to bed. Meath, again, they were right in there. The only bad performances I've seen them have, Cavan was probably the worst performance I've seen from Down, but they were still unlucky in that game. Like the Pat Havern score at the end, there was a lot of controversy around that one. But this game at home for a Down team that are where they are, but they haven't been playing particularly badly. Westmeath have been playing well as well, but I still think Down will have a feeling that they can't get relegated. It can't get relegated, and I feel like they'll put the shoulder to the wheel here and get over the line, which will put them level points allowed.
It would, yeah. But if the thing is, if Louth do beat Cork as well, and Down win against Westmeath, Down will be ahead of Cork. Cork will be in the relegation zone. This is why it's a huge game for Cork, that game against Louth. But there is another scenario actually. If Westmeath do turn around the fortunes and they beat Down, Then if Louth and Cork draw the next day on Sunday, Louth and Cork are safe. So I don't know, would there be match? Obviously there won't be. Obviously there's none of that in Gaelic games, no doubt about it. But yeah, it is worth pointing out there's a lot of permutations to look at. We'll look at Division 3 next, and Division 4, the games are on the ticker there. Division 3 in particular, there are some very, very interesting games to look at. So starting off on Saturday evening, you have Laois against Clare at Laois Higher Moor Park at 6 p.m. on Saturday evening. And then on Sunday in Division 3, you have games between Laois and Fermanagh at 2 p.m. in Ballinamoor. You have Antrim against Sligo at 2 p.m. in Corrigan Park, and then Offaly against Kildare at 2 p.m. in Glennis O'Connor Park. I think, safe to say, sorry, Laois from Fermanagh are beating it. So we'll rush that game under there. Looking at the other games, Laois and Clare is a huge game in terms of getting maybe confidence in getting their team. I think whoever wins that game is probably still in the promotion hunt. Whoever wins between Offaly and Kildare is probably already up. That should be a very interesting game in its own right. And Antrim and Sligo is a big game in Division 3, considering Sligo's win against Clare last Sunday. Yeah, it's an A or B kind of situation there. But if Sligo do beat Antrim, then Antrim are in the relegation zone. That's going to be a very, very interesting game to see who actually is in kind of the downward spiral and going back down to Division 4. A lot of interesting games there in Division 3. Your thoughts on these?
Yeah. I'll jump into it in a second, but definitely one thing that I've noticed doing the podcast is if we ever find ourselves, Matthew, in a position on the Sunday game, we better start drinking a few energy drinks before the show, because I've had moments like that where like I've had, Sligo will beat Sligo, etc., etc. So yeah, I don't know how they do it. Basically, props to them. Looking at it, at the games, the only one that I think is fairly set that I'd be very confident saying is that Fermanagh will beat Leitrim. Unfortunately, I think that losing streak will continue. Laois against Clare, starting with that one, obviously I'll go chronologically. Laois against Clare. I've said that Clare will go up from the get-go, and I am going to stick with what I've said from the start. I'm going to give them a chance anyway till the final day, but Laois have been a thorn in the side of any team that they played against. They've been very, very tricky to come up against. The result that definitely impressed me the most was the way that they beat Sligo. That made me be like, okay, what's going on? A, what's going on with Sligo? But B, also good things going on there with Laois. And McNulty, brilliant coach, and continues to get a tune out of that Laois team. And they've been solid in Division 3 this season, but I probably don't think that they're going to go up. I think Clare will shade this one, even though it's in O'Moore Park. I just feel like the experience that's in that Clare team will be enough to tip them over the line, plus the talent of people like Emmett McMahon, Keelan Sexton, Owen Cleary. I think they'll be able to get over the line. Kildare, Offaly, yeah, whoever wins this one is up. As simple as that. And I think Kildare ultimately will shade it. I think it would be a difficult one though, because it's in O'Connor Park, and the reality is you cannot deny Mickey Hart gets results. Like he's joined Offaly there. The groundwork was already done by the likes of Declan Kelly, and the fact that they had the under-20 All-Ireland and a lot of good things coming through there for Offaly. But I think you add Mickey Hart in there, and he just knows how to get results and get things done, and he has an X factor about him. And if he did it with Louth, he can definitely do it with Offaly as well in terms of taking them very quickly in the right direction. So I would not be surprised at all if Offaly get over the line and get themselves promoted, which would be unbelievable for them. But I just think on paper, player for player, you cannot deny that Kildare have the best squad in the division, and they probably should be going up. And Brian Flanagan has been a very shrewd appointment. He's definitely been getting a tune out of them. But I really believe Kildare will get over the line, and what will be a tight game and ultimately go up, which brings me to the most important game of the bunch, Sligo against Antrim. Straight up, I think Sligo are going to win, and I think they're going to save themselves. That's ultimately what I'm going with. But the fact that it's in Corrigan Park means that it brings with it a whole other different box of tricks. But the one thing that we established from the get-go is that Sligo have the talent, and they have an abundance of players that are well capable of playing at this level and beyond. And I think
they put themselves in a hellhole. But the reality is, if Tony Mack can just go to them and be like, lads, we've been so bad, yet somehow we have in front of us a way to get out of this situation. Like, we have Antrim, and if we beat them, we've got Leitrim on the final day. Win these, and we're safe. They very much gave themselves a boxer's chance by beating Clare in a game that I didn't think that they would win because I thought that they just weren't at the races. It reminded me how good they were in that game. It seems like they've woken up, and I think they're going to follow on with a good win against Antrim.
Yeah, I would probably go for Kildare and Sligo to win those games for and obviously to beat Leitrim. I actually think Laois will beat Clare at home. I feel like that defeat for Clare last week will hit them with a ton of bricks. Like, that was a huge chance to get a firm grip of promotion, and they kind of failed in that department. But there is a situation actually we're establishing Fermanagh will beat Leitrim probably easily as well. If Antrim beat Sligo, given that Fermanagh result, Sligo will be gone. So it's an opportunity as well for Antrim in Corrigan Park to relegate Sligo. Huge opportunity at their doorstep there. It should be very interesting this week. Liam has a comment in here about his beloved Offaly. I'll give us a chance, but Kildare will be a pissed off side. Swearing, sorry lads, sorry about that.
You better say a million apologies for me then. Sorry, man.
I'll blame you here. But after the Clare results, and it could just unleash hell on us. So it'll be a tough one for us. So yeah, it should be a very interesting game, no doubt about it, between Kildare and Offaly. And it should be a very interesting game, no doubt about it. Liam saying here, yes, he sweared. I did it.
Yeah, you got you to swear.
Reading off the sheet. That's what you get for reading off the sheet. That's what happens. But anyway, moving swiftly on to Division 4, and there are 4 games on here. Carlow against Longford in Netwatch Cullen Park at 5:30 on Saturday evening. You've Wexford and already promoted Wexford. Congratulations to John Hagerty and his team. They're at home to Tipperary at 6:30. And then you've Waterford against London at 7 p.m. in Dungarvan for Harfield. I think the big one on Sunday, this is the big one that we'll probably have to talk about in general, in my opinion. Wicklow against Limerick in Aughrim at 2 p.m. I feel like looking at that game in particular, Limerick are at 7 points, Wicklow are at 6. If Limerick win that game in Aughrim, Limerick are up, more than likely. So that's a huge game on Sunday, no doubt about it. So who are you backing, Limerick and Wicklow?
Yeah, that's the one that we have to look at in this division, because when you look at it, Wexford, I think, will want to get the slam dunk, even though they're already up. I think John Hegarty will look at it and be like, it would be nice to go 7 from 7 and to really put the stamp on it that they are up. They were too good for the division and they're moving on to bigger and better things. So that would mean that Tip then would be in a position where they will fall off whoever wins this game. And Longford then obviously have their own difficulties in terms of their own individual consistency. They've been very, very hit or miss, but also the difficult challenge that they face away to Carlow. A Carlow team that, to be honest, have nothing to play for. So I would back Longford to be able to get over the line on that one and potentially insert themselves as a late contender for the promotion chase, especially if Wicklow can beat Limerick. I'm trying to figure out what result would Longford want. Surely
Longford against Limerick was actually a draw. So I'm looking at the points difference there. Limerick are in 21, Longford are in Longford are in -7, Limerick are in 21. So basically Longford, if they are to stay in the promotion charge, and if Limerick are to beat Wicklow, they'll have to batter Carlow this weekend, which is not an easy thing to do.
Okay, but then if Limerick won, they'd be on 9 points.
Yeah.
Then they'd need...
But I'm saying Longford would be on 7. The head-to-head doesn't apply because 7. It was a draw. So,
yeah, and who are Longford playing on the last day?
Who are they playing on the last day?
Waterford, is it? I think it's Waterford.
I don't think it's Waterford. I think they played Waterford already. I'm just going to double check this very, very quickly. But it should be very, very interesting. In fairness, that Wicklow and Limerick game will decide promotion.
Looking at the rest of the games very, very quickly. Wexford Tip, as I said, I think Wexford.
I've got it now. Yeah. They're playing Wexford at home, Longford.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
So I think it's done. I think if Limerick win this one, I think they're up. And looking at it, they've shown more consistency than Wicklow have. Wicklow have been very good one week, but then they've also lost to London and had some really shocking results in this league campaign. So I think all in all, Limerick probably deserve promotion a little bit more than Wicklow do, hence why they have a score difference of 21 versus Wicklow 7. I think they'll shade this one. It'll be really tight, but I think they'll shade it. Wexford will go 7 from 7, in my opinion. I think Limerick will go up with them.
Yeah, and it added on to the fact as well, Limerick have Waterford as well at home in the last game.
Yeah.
So, like, even if Limerick do draw this game,
Waterford go 0 from 7, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. It really would. After the progress they made last year, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like under Paul Shanky they were moving in the right direction, but like, you know that whole phrase of like trying to turn a truck around, or like, it's like Waterford football is like a truck on the it's like a truck frozen in ice at the top of a mountain or something. Like, it's just good luck. It's like exactly, a truck that's turned over in a ditch.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to comprehend, but that is the Division 4. That is all the football wrapped up.
That? Obviously, that's another one, but like, how do you even go about turning Waterford around?
Well, last year was probably the closest to it, wasn't it?
But like, again, like, if we're talking pound for pound, and if we're talking like, they won one game. They won
last year. In the championship, they won 2 games.
2 games, sorry, yeah, but like, that's the best year they've had in like a decade. Like,
yeah, true.
Like, the interest is not there. The interest is all about the hurling. Like, I remember last year. I remember, especially in the league last year, there was actually whispers of like just abandoning the football team.
But to be fair, the players like Kevin Walsh, who spoke off the ball after the tip game, I distinctly remember his interview. He was saying that it was a load of rubbish, really, and they still wanted to play football. So there is still passionate football people in Waterford, even though there is very, very few.
But they need what Waterford need is they need someone to come in who is just going to be like, they need people to come in that are just game plan orientated. That is like, we are going to turn Waterford football around, and you need to do it from the base up. You need to do it from under 13, under 14, under 15, up to a senior team, and turn the whole ship around, because that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, definitely. So it is probably a discussion that we'll discuss another day, but that is the football wrapped up. Just a comment in here from Shawnee Hay. He's saying, I reckon league football is the only competition in the world where the start is more competitive than the end. Yeah, I think that I'd agree with that. When you look at sides there. Yeah. It's an interesting point, definitely.
The Premier League, most teams that are mid-table have nothing to play for coming towards the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Another comment in here from Shawnee K. To make football more competitive at lower levels, you need a transfer. Yeah. That's not happening. No doubt about it. Like,
get on to the FRC.
Exactly. But moving swiftly on to the hurling.
There already is one. Let's call a spade a spade. Got players moving.
Yeah.
Fiona Mackesy just packed up and moved to Kilkenny.
I see that the top scorers actually moving into hurling. This makes us go swiftly on to hurling. But I see Cavan, for example, in Division 3. Their top 2 scorers are from Waterford and Kilkenny.
That's common enough. In the football as well, like the amount of lads in the Dublin Club Championship. Like, I remember people picking on different examples. Like, for example, Jack Smith from Skerries, and they were saying, "Oh, it's Jack Smith. He's Westmeath kind of player." I was like, no, what happened with Jack Smith was he was playing for Skerries for years. He wasn't getting the call from Dublin. And then Westmeath figured out that he could play for them. And they asked him would he be up for playing for them. That's how that worked. It's the same thing with the Devereux brothers. Like, Nicky Devereux played for Dublin, and then he was released from the Dublin panel. Basically said, "Are you going to call me back?" They were, "No." He was like, "Well, I can play for Wicklow." "Okay, go on." That's how that happened.
That's the thing, yeah. That's the thing. Exactly. Like Robbie Coyde. Well, Robbie Coyde is different. Like, he was played most of his club football actually underage with Dublin, in Dublin. Then he went to Galway. Then he went to Tip, played inter-county for Tip. And then he since moved on to clubs in Cork, Carby Rangers and Barry Row. But he's still playing for Tip. So
Robbie Kiley.
Robbie Kiley, yeah.
He's back.
No, he's not back. I'm just making an example.
He retired.
He's retired. Yeah, I know he has retired, but it's just an example.
You were saying he was still going. I was like, no, he's not. Fella's been retired for years.
Yeah, but moving swiftly on to the hurling, finally, we'll get on to the hurling, and it is Kilkenny against Limerick in Division 1A in Nona Park on Saturday at 3:30. And the situation in this game is, if Kilkenny get something, if they draw or win this game, Clare and Wexford wave adios to Division 1A. They're in Division 1B, they are relegated. But Limerick, like, if they win this game, they're on 7 points, level with Cork in second place. The league final is still on. Would John Kiley still want a league final with this Limerick team? Like, it's an interesting kind of thought.
Of course. I mean, Limerick are on, in my opinion, I remember, I do love a UFC reference, but I remember when Adesanya was at the top of the game. And you remember he won a title fight against Paulo Costa, where everybody tipped him to lose. And I remember he was like, he just kept saying, like, y'all must have forgot. Like, I'm the best. That type. And I feel like Limerick this season are on the y'all must have forgot train of who's the best team in the country. And I feel like they'll want to leave no doubt when the year is finished who the best team is. And I feel like that's what sets it up between them and Cork so beautifully, man. It's going to be absolute cinema between the two of them. And then Clare as well. Like, it's just going to be barn burners in the Munster Championship. I really, really, really believe that Limerick are good enough to take their throne back. Kilkenny, on the other hand, I'm very worried about them. Like, I mean, they've had their flashes of brilliant performances over the past couple of seasons, but in the grand scale of things, they have been on a downward trajectory. Last week against Tip, like, first of all, I don't know what was going on with the red cards. I'm starting to think the referee was on commission for how many red cards he gave out. But, like, 3 red cards, and on top of that, they only had 2 scorers from play, which is really worrying. Like, I was cutting up the highlights for that game that are up on TG Car now. I guarantee you this is all I was seeing. I was seeing red cards, Tipperary points, and TJ Reid freeze. Like, they were the 3 most common traits of the game. And it was just a really, really bad day for Kilkenny hurling, to be honest. The red cards and the fact that they were so outclassed by a Tipperary team that aren't in the best place themselves. Don't get me wrong, like, they have been good in the league, but it's not the greatest Tipperary team we've ever seen. It's a Tipperary team that's in form, but Kilkenny should be able to mix it with them, and they just weren't. Yeah, it's very worrying, and I don't back them to get anything from this game. I think Limerick are just going to be too strong. I have seen Wooly Parkinson's clip where he was talking about the competition in the Limerick squad. And he was like, they've got 3-1 for the goalkeeper, 5-1 for the full back line, 6-1 for the half back line, 5-2 for the midfield. And, like, he just is listing out all the options that they have for the different positions. And it's just terrifying, the talent that they have. And then you're not even including the lads that have left the panel, like people like Pat Ryan and stuff, that a player of his caliber leaves and it's just, they don't even notice it anymore. They're just so stacked. It's literally unbelievable. And yeah, I can't see Kilkenny in the current form that they're in beating Limerick. I can't see it happen.
No, I can't either. I think Limerick will actually romp home in this one. Liam is saying, I think this could be a sobering weekend for Kilkenny. He corrected that correctly there. But yeah, I think obviously Limerick will win this game. But just before we get on to the other hurling games and the O'Connor Cup as well, the red cards last week, don't you think there were a bit of stupidity from those Kilkenny players? I know Mikey Kerry, you could argue, didn't deserve a straight red card, but in terms of the fact he was on a yellow card, do you not think he was brainless in going for Darragh McCarthy, though? Like,
yeah,
what is he?
That was my kind of thought process on it, was that was just pure frustration. That was just, the game is just going against him and he just lashes out. I think that was the way that I read that one. The Blanchfield one was reckless. He deserved to go for that. The Jordan Malloy one was probably the one that I thought was harsh. And
it was a second yellow.
Second yellow, though, I can't really disagree with it. And I seen Jamie Wall talking about the first one with Alan Tyne and that red card. And that probably, he definitely did soften me up to the idea that it should have been a red card. When I heard him talk, when he was saying, well, what if he did catch him? Like, do we need someone to get completely poleaxed for it to be a red card? And I do understand his point. Like those 3 red cards that they got, they were all fairly reckless, is the point. It was players not being disciplined. And that discipline is a word that you would have always associated with Brian Cody's Kilkenny. Like, they'd bring players in the league, and if they got a red card, that was the last you'd see them. You'd never see them in Brian Cody's Kilkenny team again. And I really, really don't think Derek Ling should stand for that. I think that, bring them in, they should be ultra disciplined in this game, no matter how the game is going.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a worrying trend for Kilkenny, no doubt about it. And they probably will
see. The worrying trend again, man, is the fact that they were still turning to TJ last week as well. 2 scorers from play, and they were very reliant on his free taking. And I'm looking at the players on the pitch that they have, the likes of Mossy Keown, and they have a lot of new blood in there. But I was like, TJ was doing the business for you, and he was the main man 10 years ago. And it speaks to how good TJ is that he's still unbelievable today. But TJ should be in the part now. And I'm not saying anything about him, but TJ should be in the part where he's more contributing to the team, but he's not the main man, and he's not being completely relied on to do the business. Like, you look, for example, at how Dublin were able to get the best, out of players that were hitting their 30s, like James McCarthy, etc. Because while he was a massive player for Dublin and while he was massively contributing, we weren't completely reliant on him. We had other players who took the burden off him. Kilkenny need Owen Cody, Mossy Keown, Billy Ryan. They need these guys to take the mantle off TJ and let TJ just contribute his piece without having to carry the team, because he won't be able to carry it for long.
Yeah, exactly. And it is going to be a worrying trend for Kilkenny, no doubt about it. And they probably will stay up, but yeah, still worrying going to the championship, no doubts. Look at the other hurling games. It is Laois against Carlow, Division 1 beat us in Laois Higher Gore Park at 1:45 on Saturday as well. Just to mention as well, in Division 2, you have Meath against Down in Trim at 1:30. That's already promoted Down. So congratulations to all involved. And the situation there in Division 2 is if Meath don't win against Down, Kildare are up. And then you have Cavan against Armagh in Division 3 as well at 12 p.m. on Saturday. The situation at Laois and Carlow is Carlow are technically still in the promotion battle. Waterford aren't up just yet, but if Carlow fail to beat Laois, Waterford are up without poking a ball, so that's worth pointing out as well. We're pointing out as well that if Carlow win this game, Laois are relegated, so that'll be them gone. So a lot of permutations here. Do you think Laois will win to save themselves in this game?
Very difficult one to call. Honestly, no. I think Carlow have shown me a lot. Number one in their victory over Waterford, but then even in defeats that they've had, like the game against Dublin and Parnell Park, I was very impressed by them. Players that they have, like James Doyle, like Chris Nolan, like these guys have been very, very solid throughout the league campaign. Yeah, I think Carlow win this one, man. I think they've been really, really good. And the fact is, as you said, they're not out of the promotion race just yet. If they get this win, all of a sudden they're one win away from catching Waterford potentially, and they're not out of it yet. And I think they're going to get this win in order to put themselves to lift themselves back into the promotion race.
The thing is as well though, but if Dublin do win their last game and Waterford still lose against Offaly, then 3 teams on 8 points and Carlow win their last game as well. 3 teams to be on 8 points, but then it goes down to score difference. At the moment, Waterford at 56, Dublin 27, Carlow -4. So it still looks pretty unlikely. I think Carlow will be hoping, obviously, to win their 2 games, Offaly to beat Waterford, and then Dublin to lose or draw their last game for them to go up. But we'll have to see what happens. I think Carlow will beat Laois as well this weekend.
Again, though, this is a situation for Carlow of now or never, in my opinion. Because you have Dublin, who will probably miss the boat. And then you have a little-known team by the name of the All-Ireland champions, Clare, coming down to 1B. They'll take a promotion spot next year. So next year, you'd imagine it will be Clare and Dublin that get promoted.
Yeah, definitely. And it should be a very interesting weekend as well in the hurling league, despite the number of games this weekend. Just time to go on to the O'Connor Cup this weekend. That is the LGFA equivalent for the college competitions. And that is taking place this weekend in a super bumper weekend in O'Connor Cup action. So on the semi-finals on Friday the 14th of March, they're all taking place at Queen's University Belfast. That's the host university for these competitions. These semi-finals are going to be streamed live on the LGFA streaming platforms. UCC against the University of Galway at 1 p.m. on Friday the 14th, and DCU against Ulster University at 3 p.m. on Friday the 14th. Then the final is on TG Car Sport YouTube on Saturday. That's on Saturday the 15th of March. That's at 3 p.m. And obviously that's between the semi-final winners, whoever they may be. University of Galway won their quarter-final against UL on an impressive scoreline, 310 to 8 points, whereas UCC topped the seedings and they've done pretty well in this competition. Then the other side of the draw, you have DCU against Ulster University. DCU topped the seedings there. Ulster University beat TU Dublin in the quarterfinals, 112 to 110. That was a good win for them. DCU, in terms of names, they've won the last 2 O'Connor Cups, and they have the likes of Emma Duggan in their team, Meath All-Ireland champion, who coincidentally is their captain of this team. Aisling Handley, who's a brilliant for Roscommon at the moment. Leah Fox for Leach was a very good player. Hannah McGuinness from Dublin's very good as well. Ruth Sargent from Kildare. Abigail Temple Isoko from Donegal. Niamh Donlan from Dublin. You have Leisha Lenihan from Kildare as well. Some excellent names there. The University of Galway team, who are playing against UCC, have the likes of Ava Noon, who's the captain from Galway, obviously. You have Marianne Jordan from Galway. You have Kate Slevin, who's the top scorer for Galway in Division 2 in the Little National League at the moment. UCC, they're coming up against the University of Galway. Predominantly Cork players, Abigail Ring being one of the main players in that team. You have the likes of Aoife Healy there as well. You have Darach Irie. You have Jess Gill from Kerry. You have Rosie Corkery from Cork there as well. Amy Harton from Kerry. Breed McMaw from Waterford. Some excellent players on show there. Some very good players on show for this O'Connor Cup weekend. So definitely it's a good football to look forward to, and a great time to end the college competitions in the spring.
Certainly, and then like the fact that it's, as you said, the fact that it's kind of days back to back. That like we have the semi-finals taking place tomorrow, and then the final taking place on Saturday, and it brings a different life to the competition than the ones where it's week to week and stuff like this. So, very interested to see how each team manages it. From if you're winning the semi-final quite comfortably, do you start taking key players off? Because you last thing you want is to risk an injury and things like that. Like if DCU are winning with minutes to go, do you start whipping Emma Duggan off and players like this? It's really, really interesting to see how each team will manage the situations as they present themselves. The final being on as well on Saturday, live on the TGK YouTube channel. And then the fact that the games are live on the LGFA YouTube channel is really, really good. Everybody's able to watch the games for free. The fact that DCU have a player the caliber of Emma Duggan, and the fact that with the experience that they bring, obviously it's the team that won it last season, I'd probably still lean to them. I know that you're mentioning the players at UCC have. Amy Harrington obviously is the one that jumps out the most at me. University of Galway obviously have the likes of K7, even Noon. But I like the look at DCU's team. I'm not just saying that because I'm an alumni.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to back UCC. I like the look of them players. I think some of them Cork players are.
Not because you're a Cork boy either.
Exactly. Yeah. But they have some good players themselves. Not just Amy Harrington from Kerry. Obviously, Breed McMaw is really impressed me in the league for Waterford. I think she's had a brilliant season so far. I think some of the Cork girls in this team are very, very good as well. Abigail Riggs scored 4 points against Roscommon in the last game in the Little National League. Darach Irie is a good player from defence as well. I think Leah Hanlon's a good enough player for Pride Rovers. Rosie Corkery's an excellent wing back for Neva Vaughan in Cork as well. So I think UCC, I'm going to back them to win it. Not just because I'm from Cork. I just have I've seen the potential of this team. Amy Corcoran from Aaron Zone's another good player to watch out for as well. Like, there are some decent players in Cork at the moment, and there is positivity for Cork in the Little League, even though they are in Division 2 at the moment, but they are winning games, which is a good sign for Joe Carroll's side. But that brings a wrap on the podcast in terms of the football, the hurling, and the LGFA in the O'Connor Cup. Thanks to anybody that commented on the video, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks to Seamus for coming onto the show today. Thanks to Capture Athletics for sponsoring today's show, as always. And until next week, we'll see you then. Take care and enjoy the games.